Good day, everyone. Thank you for virtually being here to listen and to become my audience today. This is Christy, and today I'm going to walk you through with the preliminary findings of the current research I am having. Entitled Reflecting the Modern Filipino Social Media Identity in the Visual and Lexicosemantic Elements of Food Product Ads in Facebook. But before we do that, let me give you first some insights of what this research is all about. As we all know, the number of social media users around the world increases when COVID-19 started and up until now. It was over 4.26 billion people back on 2021 and is projected to become 6 billion by 2027. This is according to Statista, which is an organization that focuses on giving consumer and market data. And Filipinos are on top of the daily usage charts, spending 4 hours and 15 minutes a day online. Because of this, the digital advertising industry also booms, producing, creating, and releasing advertisements to different media sites, especially on Facebook, that ranks as first with 2.740 billion monthly active users as of January of 2021 last year. The increase in the number of people who are online is due to the restrictions being implemented due to the pandemic. Consumers then opted to order online instead of going out, and I'm sure you also have quite few experiences in this. Filipino consumers then specifically shifted their way from buying and eating foods outside into online food delivery, or OFD. There is then the so-called migration of the advertising industry into digital food environment. So this is where the food advertisements come in, which is the focus of the present research. Using social semiotics and multimodality of Chris and Van Leeuwen, following the levels of analysis laid down by Opavsky on 2016, 40 Facebook food advertisements which are released during the pandemic are analyzed in our visual and lexicosemantic elements. The recurring characteristics are identified, which are then served as the basis in establishing the modern Filipino social media identity. These are the questions that are partially answered based from the current results. Number 1, what are the recurring characteristics of the visual and lexicosemantic elements used in the advertisements? And number 2, what are the implications of the results regarding the modern Filipino social media identity as reflected in the ads? Online advertisements, same as other signs and symbols around us, contain elements and other systems of communication which basically express meanings either explicitly or implicitly. Meaning could be established through different semiotic resources depending on the mode being used, either spoken language, written language, visual, audio, spatial, or a combination of these. Since online advertisements are established in different signs and symbols which are delivered in various modes, then it could be deconstructed using social semiotics and multimodal analysis, which are generally relevant in analyzing these ads. These are the founding theories then of the present paper. Using this conceptual framework as a guide, 40 randomly selected food advertisements on Facebook were analyzed by looking into their visual and lexicosemantic elements. The elements underwent different levels of analysis that was laid down by Opavsky, namely graphitic, lexical, semantic, and the newly added visual level. The visual, lexical, and semantic elements of these ads were deconstructed using social semiotics and multimodal analysis of Chris and Van Leeuwen. With a combination of the aforementioned approaches, the expected outcomes of the current paper are: number 1, to characterize the recurring visual and lexicosemantic elements used in the Facebook ads, and number 2, to provide implications regarding the modern Filipino social media identity based from the results. The paper adopted both quantitative and qualitative research design. Now let's move on to the preliminary findings. I'll just give you a quick rundown of the elements that tend to recur frequently rather than go into more detail because, as I mentioned earlier, there are other factors to consider when analyzing these online advertisements. And the topics I have highlighted in this analysis are merely preliminary ones that need to be confirmed by interraters and traditional research. The viewer's proximity to the subject is the main emphasis of the first analysis, which relates to visual shots. If the scene is real life, how near or how far the subject is from the spectator. Majority of the images in the corpus, about 50%, are in medium shots, which means they were taken up close. Examples are the ads for Del Monte macaroni and Skyflakes. In reality, medium shots like these are thought of as a friendly distance, where the observer is practically touching the subject. The second important conclusion concerns the phonological elements of the slogans. 41% of them, or 16 slogans, use rhythm as a method. The pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables is referred to as rhythm. Example, the Mang Inasal slogan, Ihaw Sarap, perfect for sharing. The use of rhythm in this slogan transmits a strong emotional and mnemonic effect to the viewers, making either the ad or the slogan more memorable and easy to remember, and in return, making the consumers more likely to buy the product being advertised. The third finding focuses on the semantic level, notably the coherence of the text. According to the analysis, 25 of the 40 slogans of the food ads in Facebook have exoporic references, which is comparable to 62.5% of the total gathered corpus. This indicates that the majority of the advertisements relate to the viewer's existing world knowledge, such that the ideas being expressed or implied go beyond what can be found in the text alone, necessitating the viewer's participation in a shared experience in order to comprehend what has been depicted. For instance, Goya's Resort Vibes Home Edition slogan creates the impression that the consumer is on vacation even when they are actually staying at home, since it is prohibited for them to leave the house because of the increase in COVID cases in the Philippines as early as first quarter of 2021. The language consistency in the slogans was also examined in the present paper. 19 of the slogans use both English and Filipino, indicating that code mixing are highly prevalent in the tagline of the corpus. These findings show that most, if not all, Filipino Facebook online users are more likely to code mix instead of using the Filipino language consistently, because majority of the slogans corpus are written in Taglish, then followed by the use of pure English. Thus, majority of the words are in English rather than localizing the slogans and using Filipino. This is further reinforced by the second to the last finding, which shows that 138 of the 226 words contained in the 40 slogans, or 61.1% of the words in both the open and closed class categories, are in English. The linguistic preferences of the intended viewers are reflected in this interlingual transmission. Advertisers frequently use code mixing to connect with their target audience, especially when it comes to the common language that they use online. Since the internet has made us more of a global village where English is the dominant language, this is one of the modern Filipino social media identities that could be developed. The 40 slogans show how Filipino internet users are adapting this trend. And the last but not the least preliminary finding is the use of neologism in the food ads. Although these words only sometimes appeared, they had fairly noteworthy qualities. Examples are kari-karazy, magmunch, quarantfling, substansyang, and sarap. Notice that these words are a combination of both Filipino and English words, which are combined together to form a new vocabulary that mostly relates to the pandemic experience. These neologisms are examples of the so-called Philippinism, which according to Rafael in 2022, are examples of various renditions of language in the online platform. Mostly, these are used by millennial social media users, which according to Cadyao et al. In 2022, is a result of Filipino localization or acculturation of the English language, leading to the production of words, phrases, or expressions that may in some manner be grammatically erroneous or unfamiliar to native English speakers. What is noteworthy, as explained by McCohan, is that Philippine English has its own self-contained system, which is autonomous than that of English. Let's now have the partial implications based from the results. Generally speaking, the Filipino social media identity is characterized with a more compassionate and cautious voice that is more grounded to the cultural values such as pakikisama, which is the sense of belongingness and fellowship, the bayanihan, hospitality, and the care for others. These values are among those which are prevalent, especially with regards to how the food ads showcase the idea that we could make a difference during this trying time of the pandemic by staying home, spending time with our family and loved ones, while enriching our cultural values. Aside from this is, another implication could be deduced based from the language being used. Since majority of the food ad slogans are written and use English language as its medium, although there are some which are code mixed with Filipino, yet since 61.1% of the total number of words are in English, therefore, it reflects to what modern Filipino social media users are, which are fluid and dynamic in identity, while adapting to globalization and acculturation, such that the English language have become their medium of expression, code mixed with Filipino and Filipinized vocabularies manifested in the neologism. So in conclusion, the current paper is still at its early stage. In-depth and further readings are still needed to be done by the researcher to furnish the paper, coupled with some cross-checking of the results and suggestions that could be gained from an academic setup like this. Therefore, your suggestions and comments this morning will be highly appreciated on my pursuit as a researcher to achieve a better scholarly paper worthy to be read and to serve as a reference within and across the field of linguistics.
I remember the days when life had a summer fade, and all our nights were for dreaming